He was a man obsessed with the secrets of the universe, with a brain so ahead of its time he figured out the sun doesn't move, nearly 100 years before Galileo. But who was Leonardo da Vinci? What if his brilliance wasn't just talent, but a way of thinking that you could learn? This is the story of how Leonardo da Vinci became a genius and how you can too. Leonardo's genius wasn't about talent, it was about obsession. He asked questions and chased answers with a level of focus most people lose after childhood. But Leonardo never lost it. He asked, why is the sky blue? And studied particles and light. He asked, how do birds fly? And sketched their wings midair, then designed flying machines to match. Books weren't enough for him. He dissected over 30 human bodies because he had to see how the body worked. This wasn't rebellion, it was curiosity taken to its extreme. One time, he wondered what a woodpecker's tongue looked like, so he found one and drew it. No reason, just the question. And that's the point. Real curiosity isn't casual, it's obsessive. When something catches your attention, follow it. You never know where it'll lead. But here's what made Leonardo truly different. He didn't just chase answers. He used boredom to ask better questions. While most people rush to fill quiet moments with noise, Leonardo leaned into the silence. He'd sit for hours watching water, how it twisted around rocks, rippled in the breeze, or pooled in corners. He'd watch candlelight flicker, shadows shift, and people's faces as emotions changed in real time. These weren't distractions, they were clues. Leonardo wasn't zoning out, he was tuning in. And in those quiet moments, he trained something most of us ignore: his senses. He believed seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, and touching were tools for discovery, not just survival. But most people, he said, look without seeing, eat without tasting, breathe without awareness. So he trained like it mattered. He listened for faint sounds in crowded rooms. He slowed down meals to notice each flavor. He studied the light on people's skin until he could catch the exact moment a thought turned into emotion. That's why the Last Supper doesn't just show reactions, it shows realizations. And none of this was random. Leonardo didn't split life into categories. He didn't separate art from science or logic from feeling. He found connections. He painted better because he knew anatomy. He designed machines because he studied birds. He composed images with rhythm because he understood music. In Codex Travolzinus, he once wrote, "All our knowledge has its origin in our perceptions." But maybe the biggest surprise about Leonardo? He wasn't born to success. No fancy education, no royal family, no seat at the table of elite scholars. He was born out of wedlock, which meant he couldn't attend university. He didn't even learn Latin, the language of science and philosophy at the time. So how did he do it? He started as an apprentice in the workshop of Andrea da Verrocchio, a well-known painter and sculptor. That's where Leonardo got his hands dirty, mixing paints, sharpening tools, watching, learning, trying. And from there, he taught himself the rest. He read everything he could find. He asked weird, specific questions that nobody else was asking. And he didn't just study answers, he tested them. If something confused him, he built it. If it broke, he took it apart. His education wasn't in books, it was in doing. There's a letter he wrote to the Duke of Milan that says it all. 10 full paragraphs explaining what he could design. Bridges, cannons, underwater breathing gear, even armored tanks. It's a resume for a one-man army, and only at the very end, almost as an afterthought, he adds, "Also, I can paint." That wasn't a joke. It was his way of showing what really mattered, not titles, not degrees, just skill. He believed your value came from what you could create, not from what you claimed to know. And how did he stay so creative? He didn't grind non-stop, he worked in bursts. Sometimes he'd paint for 10 hours without stopping. Other times he'd vanish, go for a walk, sit by a stream, stare at the clouds. People thought he was being lazy. The monks at the church where he painted the Last Supper even filed complaints. In Codex Atlanticus he wrote, "The painter who draws merely by practice and by eye without any reason is like a mirror which copies everything placed in front of it without being conscious of their existence. He knew that great ideas don't come from forcing them. They come from rhythm, effort, then rest, focus, then release. The balance is what kept his mind sharp. The rhythm is what powered his genius. Because here's the thing most people miss. Genius doesn't come from working non-stop. It comes from knowing when to stop. Leonardo didn't force his creativity. He followed a rhythm. He'd work intensely for hours, totally locked in, and then he'd walk away. Not because he was lazy, but because he understood how ideas actually grow. You need space, time, stillness. That's when insight appears, when your brain finally has room to connect the dots. And Leonardo believed that space started with the body. He wasn't just smart, he was in shape. People said he moved with so much grace they'd stop to watch him walk. He fenced, rode horses, hiked for miles. And it wasn't just for health. He saw the body as part of the mind. If your body's off, your thinking's off. That's how he saw it. He once wrote, "Man has within him the lake of blood where the lungs rise and fall in breathing. So likewise the body of the earth has its oceans which also rise and fall in consequence of the world's breathing." Oswald Siren, Leonardo da Vinci, The Artist and the Man, Chapter 15. Leonardo lived his whole life searching for that kind of balance between working and resting, thinking and doing, curiosity and craft. He didn't see opposites, he saw harmony. And maybe that's why he left so many paintings unfinished. Because the point wasn't to be done. The point was to keep discovering. Even the Mona Lisa, he never handed it over. He kept it with him, adjusting and layering for years, not because he thought it was wrong, but because he believed there was always something more to find. But maybe the most surprising part of Leonardo's genius was how comfortable he was with not knowing. He didn't run from uncertainty, he leaned into it. He wrote that shadows and highlights fuse without hatching or strokes, as does smoke. And that wasn't just a nice idea. It was the foundation of his most famous painting style, sfumato. Sfumato means smoky. It's the soft blur you see in the Mona Lisa's expression. No sharp lines, no clear edges, just this gentle fade from light to shadow. It's what makes her smile so hard to pin down. Is she happy, sad, about to speak? You're never quite sure. That ambiguity is what makes the painting so unforgettable. And it's also what defined Leonardo's entire approach to life. He believed that the greatest minds were the ones that could hold two ideas at once, even if they seemed to contradict each other. That wasn't indecision, that was intelligence. Instead of rushing to find clear answers, he took his time with the questions. He lived in the gray areas. And that mindset stayed with him until the very end. That wasn't self-doubt, that was honesty. He knew the work was never truly done, because genius isn't a finish line, it's a way of living, a way of thinking, a constant practice of wondering, noticing, connecting. So if you want to think more like Leonardo, start small, ask questions, real ones, weird ones. Don't look for quick answers, look for better questions. Let yourself get bored sometimes. Don't scroll, don't swipe, just sit. Notice the way the light hits your wall. Listen to the wind through the trees. Pay attention to your senses. Taste your food instead of just eating. Watch people's faces instead of looking at your phone. Be present in ways most people aren't, because that's where genius lives, not in the loud moments, but in the quiet ones where curiosity has room to grow. You don't just read about things, you do them. You sketch, you build, you move, you rest, you learn from your body, your surroundings, your failures. You stop living in categories, you blend fields, you connect dots. You bring your music into your writing, your math into your design, your questions into your work. You stop waiting to be taught and teach yourself. And above all, you embrace mystery. You sit with uncertainty. You let the unknown guide you instead of scare you. You trust that not everything has to make sense right away. The truth, beauty, and understanding are worth chasing even if you never fully catch them. Because, in the end, Leonardo da Vinci didn't become a genius by doing what he was told. He became a genius by doing what no one else dared to do. He looked deeper, he asked harder, he saw clearer, and he never stopped learning. Now, what will you do with your own questions? So, was Leonardo da Vinci really a genius, or was he just someone who paid more attention than the rest of us? Maybe the real secret isn't being born special, but choosing to stay curious, even when the world stops asking questions. Because in the end, no matter how much we learn or create, we all face the same challenge. Will we keep seeking, or settle for what we already know?